Everybody, welcome back to another episode of FSI DFS. I'm going to be breaking down the late slate. No, it's not the late slate, it's the main slate, the 7:05 slate for Wednesday, 5/4. Happy Star Wars Day. May the Force be with you. So I did do an early slate video, so if you're looking for information on that, it's actually a pretty decent slate today. It starts at 12:40 p.m. in Eastern Standard Time. So if it's before that time, if you just want to pause this video, go to our channel, check that one out, and then come right on back. And we'll look at this 7-game slate for the evening. A couple weather concerns are popping up. Unfortunately, Coors Field looks like it's the worst at this point. It looked worse last night when I first looked at it and made the sheet. It looks like we're down to like a 60% chance of rain. It looked much heavier, but we'll have to keep an eye on that one with the wind blowing in 11 miles per hour. Boston and the Angels, it looks like maybe a 50% chance of rain up until first pitch, but tapering off after that. So maybe a late start. I think they're probably be fine there. Same thing as Baltimore, about 50% chance of rain up until around first pitch, but like 10% after that. So again, maybe a late start. So I don't think we lose 3 games on this slate. Maybe Coors Field, we'll have to keep a watch on that one, but the other games should dry out in time. So let's jump into it here. Minnesota at Baltimore. You have Dylan Bundy and Kyle Bradish making, I believe, his second start. I think I'm okay with Bundy here. He's not a great pitcher, but he hasn't had a bad season to start, and there's really not many value guys on this slate. And I know 8-3 is really not value. I'd prefer him to be like 7-5 or like 6K or something like that. But this Oriole team has not been good. The wind's going to be blowing in about 10 miles per hour. It's going to be cooler temperature. Oh, that's cooler temperature. It's going to be 74 there. So that's actually one of the warmer spots. So strike that. But anyways, the wind blowing in, they actually moved the fences back in this park. And there's been a lot of talk about the baseball being dead this year, consistent, but dead. So you really haven't seen a ton of offense, especially out of this Oriole team. So I think Bundy's definitely playable. Bradish on the other side, I think, is a decent punt in the cheap range. Probably not going to go far. Might only get you about 10 DK points, maybe a ceiling of like 12 or 13. But at 5-5, that works. Minnesota does have some power in this lineup, but they also have some strikeouts down below. So if you can get around some of the top batters, like we say, then I think, it might be okay. Bat-wise in this game, you could stack Minnesota against him, but they're down on my GPP list, probably like last. And Baltimore is maybe some cheap one-offs, but not super interested in them. Next up, we have the New York Yankees, who I believe won 11 straight now against the Toronto Blue Jays. You have Nestor Cortez and versus Kikuchi. Cortez has had a really good start to the season, but he comes up against a really good Blue Jays lineup. We talked about that in yesterday's video where we had San Francisco, where we had Rondon against the Dodgers. It was a really good lineup, and the Dodgers really worked the count, and they didn't necessarily rough him up, but he really didn't get a bunch of DK points. And I wouldn't say it was a rough outing, but it wasn't a spectacular outing. So Cortez here, and Toronto's pretty patient team. I think if you can play him at a GPP, but I think 9-9, this just isn't the right matchup that you want to play him against a right-handed predominant lineup with a lot of power. So probably not going to be playing much Cortez today. Kikuchi on the other side, he's a fade for me. He walks a lot of batters because of power. Yankees are primarily a right-handed lineup here too, besides like Rizzo, and probably won't even play Gallo in this one. So I think the Yankees are going to be probably my favorite stack on the slate because I have Coors in the GPP slot just because of the weather concern there. I think the Yankees definitely rough up Kikuchi and probably win their 12th straight game. Toronto stack, I think they're my favorite leverage stack. I'll probably throw a couple stacks out there just in case Cortez is popular. If people look at his box score for his first couple of starts and think that potentially he could have a game there, but I don't think that's going to be the outcome that's going to happen. The Los Angeles Angels and the Boston Red Sox. Again, a little bit of rain here, a little bit of wind blowing in at Fenway. You have Reid, Detmers, and Garrett, Whitlock. Detmers, he's an okay pitcher, I think. I think he can do okay against this, against this Red Sox team, but I think that he's some of the right-handed power bats might actually come alive here. So he's iffy, especially with the weather. Whitlock on the other side, he's not supposed to be a starter. I think they only really let him go like 4 innings, like 65, 70 pitches. He's the one that filled in when Tanner Houck like had the whole vaccination thing and didn't know if he was going to go to Toronto or not. So it's good to see him start again. Maybe we'll see what happens. Maybe you'll see tomorrow that he's the opener and Tanner Houck's coming in after that. So 78 is not a bad price. So I think he's playable in the context of the slate. But then again, the Angels, they do have some strikeouts in the lineup, but they do have some power in this lineup too. So it could go either way here. I just don't think it goes deep enough, but between him and Detmer, if they fit in your lineup, but I think there's so many other it's a smaller slate, so it's not like it's a 13 game slate, but I think there's better choices than either one of them, especially keep an eye on the weather. Stacking wise, I think the Angels would be my second favorite stack against Whitlock, just with the power that they've shown. And then Boston, I think, would be third because they've got the righties might actually get a chance here. I always hate playing Story, but like leading off, I can see it. Devers actually hits left-handed pitching just as well as right-handed pitching, so never leaves him out of your stacks against the lefty. Xander, JD, he and Story, I just struggle with them playing them. But if I'm going full Red Sox, I'm committed here. But I'd probably play Dahlbeck over either Story or JD there, because I just think he has a lot of power against left-handed pitching. So a lot of potential there. Hopefully the weather holds up so I can get some of those stacks and potentially. Next up, we have the Milwaukee Brewers and Cincinnati Reds, who have Vladimir Gutierrez is probably the worst pitcher on the slate, walks a lot of people, gives up hard contact. So Milwaukee is probably one of the top stacks, but I have them over the cheap side because they're really not expensive. You have like Adames at 4.6, and he's the highest one. Very, very reasonable, and definitely can fit in with another stack and make things work, whether you're stacking with Coors or the Yankees there. For the Reds, I think they're probably the lowest rated cheap stack here. Just really not hitting well, but Mike Moustakas, who's probably up batting fourth because Votto's out of the lineup, at 2K with the split advantage, is definitely someone that you could put in your lineup. Just drop the third baseman out of stack. I know it hurts like taking like Donaldson out of the Yankee stack, or taking Devers out of the Red Sox stack, or taking Rendon out of the Angels stack. But if you want to pay up for a couple pitchers, we'll get to the lineup breakdown section. I think that it's definitely worthwhile there. Freddie Peralta pitching for the Brewers, I think he's probably the second best one. I know he's had a little bit of struggle spring training and early on, but I think this is definitely a really good spot for him. And it's probably between he and Giolito is like who's the best pitcher on slate. He's only 89 and Giolito is like 9.5. So I mean, you're saving some money there too. Great matchup against the Reds, strikeouts. Like what more could you ask for? So speaking of that, we had the continuation of the battle of Chicago. We have the White Sox and the Cubs. We have wind is blowing in again, but 10 miles per hour, not 20 miles per hour like yesterday. Giolito, I think, is probably the top pitcher on the slate. If you can get Giolito and Peralta into cash, that's great. If you can't, then I think, there's some definite SP2 candidates. Hendricks, I think, could potentially be one of them. He's a very vanilla pitcher. He doesn't give up a lot of runs. He's got decent control, but he just doesn't get, there's no K upside at all for him. He's very low strikeout pitcher. So you're just going to have to make it up if he can like get through 5 or 6 innings, give up a run or two, not walk a bunch of people. I mean, that's how he's going to add up, but you're still probably looking at a ceiling of 12 for him. You could probably look at the same ceiling for like maybe Bradish or even Gomber in Coors Field. So bat wise, really don't want the Cubs. There's really nobody on this team. I mean, Rivera's at 2.7, but like again, punting first base is always, there's so many good options there. Really don't usually want to do that. And White Sox, I'm okay if you stack them against Hendricks. He's not going to strike many guys out, but it's not like a great offensive environment. I'd rather take the Coors if it plays Yankees, Red Sox, or Angels over them today. So speaking of Coors Field, like I said, about 60% chance of rain consistent through this. So we'll just have to see if they decide to play it or not. Patrick Corbin's a no. I know he had a decent outing last time out, but that was just an anomaly. He's not a good pitcher. He's probably going to give up a lot of runs here. Gomber on the other side, I've seen him do good things even in Coors. He shut down the Dodgers last year out in Coors. He's a really good young pitcher. Like he and Marquez, I just wish that at some point in their careers they could go to another team just to see if they could really shine. So not super excited about the Nationals here, especially like with Soto being a lefty, but you know, maybe they couldn't put up some runs. So I think there'd be my second favorite GPP stack behind Colorado. But Colorado, if this game plays and the weather looks good, then they'd probably slide over to the top stack, even above the Yankees. Right-handed power against Corbin, like Connor Joe, Grichuk, Diaz, Cron, Brendan Rodgers is even cheap at 3.5, and I'd even take Garrett Hampton at 2.2. I hope he makes the lineup. He might be in lead off. I've seen him give off Blackman sometimes against a lefty, and like he leads off or bats higher up. So there's a name definitely to keep an eye out for. And I said, I'm fine with the Nationals if the game looks good here, but I definitely would play Colorado over them as my primary. Next and final game is San Francisco and the Dodgers. You have Alex Woods and Tony Gonsolin. Alex Woods is a good pitcher, but same thing as Rondon. The Dodgers are really good, and if Rondon struggled, Alex Wood is not as a good pitcher. So I just not interested in paying 9.2 for him. And Gosling is another good pitcher, but he doesn't go very deep. He goes 4 or 5 innings, and the bullpen comes in. San Francisco is starting to get some bats back. Peterson and Yastrzemski should be back here with Crawford, like, so they'll match up with like a lot of left-handed bats. I think they make a decent cheaper stack because all of them under 5K. I mean, some of the 4K guys are creeping up there, but I think they're a decent stack to throw out there in a GPP or sprinkle some one-offs in your lineup. But I'd really prefer to sprinkle in like Milwaukee, I think would be better. But if you want to be a little bit different off of chalk, then I think San Francisco works for cheaper bats there. And the Dodgers, definitely probably outside of core is my favorite GPP stack against Woods. So just reviewing pitchers quickly, Giolito and Peralta, if you can get both of them in your cash lineup, great. Cortez and Woods, just based on their matchup, they're good pitchers, but I just don't really think I'm in on a cash GPP. If you want to try, then that's fine. Bundy, I think against the Orioles with the wind blowing in and the deeper walls in that ballpark, I think is good there. Detmer against the Red Sox if they continue to struggle, but a little risky because maybe this is the day that Boston gets right. Gonsolin, but I say it doesn't really go that deep against San Francisco, and Whitlock potentially, but doesn't go deep into games either. Gonsolin will go deeper than Whitlock probably. So I think it's Bundy, and then like the other 3 options I just don't feel good about. Hendricks, again, not going to get you a lot of Ks at all, but could, you know, be a solid pitcher with the wind blowing in. It's not going to help him become a superstar, but I think it's going to help him be an SP2 that's viable. Brandish, the same thing here against Minnesota. There is some power in that lineup, but there's also some Ks. He's a good young pitcher, did really well in AAA, and I think he should be able to get you 10 to 12 points at 5.5K. Should be fine. And then I said Gomber against Washington. I think he's definitely risky in Coors, but if the wind's blowing in at like 11 miles per hour, if it's going to be raining and wet and they're not going to be a great hitting environment, he's got the split advantage against Soto, and then like Nelson Cruz, it's just toast. And some of the other righties just don't really impress me too much in this lineup. And then I'm fading Gutierrez, Corbin, and Kikuchi. So top stack, Colorado if the game's going to play, but I have them with the GPP because of the weather risk there. New York, Washington, LA, and Boston like them. The White Sox, Dodgers, and then Minnesota in GPP. Cheap. Milwaukee, I think, is definitely a top stack also, but I think they're really cheap pieces that you can put in. So speaking of the stacks, let's look at what I have for a cash build. I have Giolito as my SP1. I'm okay if you go Peralta here too, if you need to save the, I think you can save $600 there. If you can get both of them, that's great. Stacking the Yankees, unless I know Colorado is going to be good. So I'm looking, you can put Rizzo in there, but lefty, like Kikuchi doesn't look bad against lefties. So probably gonna leave him off my stack. DJ LeMahieu or Torres, you can save $1,000 if you drop down the Torres there. Donaldson, Judge, and Stanton, and then Hicks should be cheap, could be leading off with up against the lefty there. So, and then I'm thinking I'm going to try to sprinkle in Milwaukee here. So I'll probably take Tellis at first base if I can get Navarez in at catcher, depending on who I go from SP2, Adames at shortstop. Maybe I'll drop Hicks and play Yelich or McCutcheon there in outfield. Maybe Judge or Stanton will get the day off and the stack will work beautiful. So then you can just play, because Hicks is cheaper than in place of Judge or Stanton, you can play Yelich or McCutcheon, or flip the stack and go with the 4 or 5 Milwaukee guys and then sprinkle in the Yankees. And then I said also what can make it work too is just drop Donaldson, or if he's out of the lineup too for a day of rest, throw in Moustakas there, minimum price for Cincinnati as a one-off, and then that opens up a ton for you also. And then for GPP, or like I said, for cash, I would consider it too. I have Peralta here. Again, if you really want to drop down, go like Bundy, Bradish, or Bundy, Hendricks. If you want to open up like a full core stack or money for bats. Diaz, Cron, Hampson, I love his price at, he's so cheap at 2-2. You can play with second base or outfield, Joe and Grichuk. And then if you probably put Milwaukee in here, they don't really have a third baseman. So you probably, again, maybe that's where you throw Moose in there. I don't think Colorado doesn't really have a third base eligible person either. So might just have to find a one-off there. If you have enough salary, if you are going low with like a pitcher lineup, if nobody really sticks out for you today, or if you go like Peralta and Bradish at 5.5 and opens up, then maybe, like I said, you can throw in like Redone is in a good spot there, or Devers or somebody like that. So that's the breakdown for today. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below, or hit me up at Twitter at MegaRotor31. Again, like I said, this slate starts at 7:05, so check back about 6:30 if there's any major weather announcements or pitching changes or anything like that. Then I'll throw some notes out there for you just to try to help you out. Other than that, I think it's a decent slate. I think you've got some good pitching options, some good hitting options. It's not one where you're like feel like you have like so many options that you can't choose. It looks pretty straightforward. So we'll just have to watch the weather and make sure nothing like changes there too much. And hopefully Coors Field plays so we can get the Rockies out there. But if not, I think between the Yankees, Boston, and the Angels, in Milwaukee, there's some really good options. So thanks for watching. I'm MegaRotor31 for FSI DFS. If you want more information about FSI DFS, check out the description of the video below, and it has a link to our Discord and our website, and we'll see you next time.